And I believe we're live. Welcome, everybody. My name is Trent, aka TD, joined by Hady, the amazing Hady, our backend smart contract dev. And we're going to be walking through the installation of a Wax history node on a very uncommon and expensive method of doing it via Amazon Web Services. Hady, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing good, thanks, brother. And
Great,
you?
man. Yeah, dude. Yeah, hell yeah. I heard it's you're sweating to death out there.
Yeah, it's so fucking hot
Yeah, dude.
today.
Yeah, man. It's all over hot. So where do we start? I know that we should have the credits loaded up, so uh, the node should be able to run for a little bit without us having to worry about the expenses. But
Yeah, so
why
uh,
is it so expensive? Go ahead and answer that.
yeah, so because naturally you need a very powerful computer to do that because with the time, like Wax blockchain has been running for over 2 years, I believe now, and there's a lot of data being stored, and if you are trying to get that data, then you need a computer that is really
Powerful, sure.
capable of doing that, very powerful of doing that. The other problem is also because most of the information or data is being stored on the memory because the blockchain is using an in-memory database, which means you also need a system that has a lot of memory. And those
Right.
things really are so fucking expensive. And that's the reason why it's always very expensive to set up a node.
Right. So the nodes that we see in the event are viewers don't know exactly what we're talking about. It's the nodes are so there's the block producers, right? And those are the ones
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you vote on,
yeah,
and
yeah.
those are the ones that the top 21 get a percentage cut or something. They get wax. I know that.
Yeah,
Um,
so they do some kind of like verification of the block and transactions, and then they are the nodes that are allowed to add blocks into the chain. So those are the producer nodes.
Gotcha. And then so a history node is not the same, and that's what we'll be doing today. Is that correct?
Yeah, correctly. So an history node is more or less just a node on the chain that doesn't really partake in anything that has to do with the block itself. Like the node will not be verifying transactions. It will not be like creating blocks or anything. All it does is just get the latest state of that blockchain and then try to store those information.
Excellent. All right. Fantastic. Okay. So I know that I had sent you some info that I had dug up on it.
Yeah.
I think it was either an article or maybe a GitHub package. Are we going to be using
Yeah,
that?
so yeah. So there's a lot of information to do that thing. I'm just gonna put them all up. A
Yeah.
moment.
Hell yeah.
So you could follow this instruction. It's a very good one. I mostly just follow a bunch of instruction and just do things the way I want to do them. Sometimes I just love looking through and see, okay, I'm not okay with this, I don't want it this way, so I just take the other information or something that works with the way I want it to be done and then use that instead.
Yeah. So it was
So
it
these are the
was.
three
Gotcha.
way to do it. Like there's an official Wax way to do it. So
Okay.
they provide a very lengthy instruction of creating your own history node with Hyperion or without Hyperion. So we'll probably be doing one without Hyperion, this one. And you could just do one with the Hyperion plugin to make things even much easier for you accessing those data and so on and so forth. Also, and then they also have another one, the Wax. They have one that you can run directly with Docker. We'll be using this as well, simply because if someone is following up and they decide they want to try, they could just give it a try with this. The good
Okay.
thing about the Docker is that you can delete both in and you still have a clean operating system, and doesn't really change anything on your operating system, right? So everything is done
Right. It's a
the
Docker.
container. So
If the way I understand it is basically the same as like VMware or like
exactly,
in
exactly.
concept. I know it's not
Yeah,
exactly the same, but it's
yeah.
just
It's
running
not
a
the same, but
virtual.
they have the same concept. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All
Yeah. So
right.
yeah. So this is one thing that I normally follow. I use this image. So they have everything already prepared. Of course, I do some changes depending on what I want. I will make some changes here and probably going to show people those changes that we'll be doing to accommodate what we are trying to achieve and so on and so forth.
Okay, so that's just so I have the correct link. It's
Yeah.
github.com/worldwide
So
asset
it's
exchange forward
it's
slash.
from the Wax Worldwide website. So
That's it.
if you just search for Wax Worldwide Asset Exchange
Yeah,
on
yeah,
GitHub, you should have those.
yeah. Boom, there we go. Got it. All right, cool. Let's get to it. What do we
Yeah,
do first? Clone the repo?
yeah. No. First, you need to get the operating system, the system you want to use. So right now I have like I have one running. I think I told you that already. So I have one running. You can see it here. It's running on the on AWS. So the node is already running. I think it's been running for at least since yesterday, I believe. Because when we were discussing yesterday, you told me about needing
Yeah,
one
yeah.
immediately. So I just boot this up. So this has been
Sweet.
running since yesterday. But we're going to create a new instance that we're probably going to end up deleting again.
Okay.
It shouldn't cost us much because we're going to probably need it for some few hours, and then we can just delete
Yeah,
everything
yeah, yeah,
at
yeah.
the end of the day.
So this is on
I'm just
EC2, right?
yeah,
That's what I
So
saw
I'm
there.
going to go through the process of getting the instance. It's
Okay.
also not very hard. So let's see if I go here. So I have this. So I go to instances.
Cool. So I have found that AWS is going to have everything you can think of when it comes to hosting and security and networking and
Yeah,
like literally everything. But it's surprising that they're not the cheapest. Like I would think that they would be, since they're responsible for so much of the internet.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so what you're going to start with is, of course, getting the system that you want the node running on.
Okay.
So if you check these two documentation, they will tell you the type of instance you could run with. I think this will tell you to use the R5N 2S large or the 3S large.
Okay.
But we're going to use the 4S large because we are doing estate history, and most you need a little bit of more memory. This offers a little bit less memory than the 4X large.
Okay.
The same thing with this as well. If you're following this tutorial, you will get what the kind of instance type you should use, right? So that's all there. What I did was I checked the instance types, and I found one that is a little bit much cheaper than the two that's been shown, and I chose that one. So that was the. So I'm just gonna give it a name. Wax.
Yeah.
Is 3 node, and we're going to use Ubuntu. Well, we don't want the latest Ubuntu. It should work with the latest Ubuntu. It's not going to be any problem, but we're going to go the safer route and just choose
Yeah.
the
That's what.
officially supported version.
Right. That's what I
Like,
said last stream. I'm like,
yeah,
dude, never go for the most updated. Go for the one that's LTS and at least
yeah,
2 versions old.
yeah. No, the newest one is LTS as well, but we're
Oh,
just going to go for the 20.04
gotcha. Yeah.
since the one people
Yeah. I
use most.
probably would have selected 18, to be honest with you, but it's whatever.
Yeah, the 2004 should work as well.
Cool.
It's no
All right.
problem.
Great.
And this is where we have to make a decision on the type of the instance type. So what I did was I chose the RN, I think it's called.
So what's the RN stand for?
So it's just kind of like named Amazon is using to differentiate the type of hardware systems they are putting together. So I think the RN are using a different type of processors. I'm not so completely sure, but you can check them. You can check the information about them. I think if you want to know more about the types, there should be somewhere to check them. No, hold
Gotcha.
on.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
here.
I'm going down a huge rabbit hole to do this. Yeah,
Yeah,
look at that. There they are.
that's a way to check the instance types, but it's just a way to give names to the type of address that they are using for each, right? So, oh, I closed the whole site again. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Hold on. So let's see. Let's go. Launch instance. Okay. Genau. Yep.
I can't even log into AWS with my personal account.
You can't?
Well, it was supposed to send me an authentication code, and it's just sitting. I haven't gotten it yet.
So if you check the R5A 4S large, right? So it tells you how many CPU you're getting, virtual CPU, and the total amount of memory that is attached to this instance type. And the price is it's okay. It's about 90 cent US dollar per hour if the system is running, every time the system is running. So we just go with this. Should be enough for what you're going to do. And then you have this. And here's a little bit where you have to have some sort of technical knowledge to know what you want to do here. So in order to connect to this instance, the very most common way to do that is through SSH. So for that, you have to create a key pair, right? So you need either uh, some kind of private and public keys together.
Hmm.
You can create one directly here. If you just click on this button, it should create It should create a new one for you. You could also just create one already for yourself if you want. Either way, we're just going to go with what Amazon is offering. So we're going to create a new pair, and then probably gonna give it a name. So let's see.
So Leaf Comic asked, what was the utility of the node? So it's specifically asking us the reputation score analysis. Absolutely, that is going to be part of it. But Hady, as I understand it, so there's already existing nodes out there. I believe NFT Hive is not only a block producer, but they have an API that you can hit and you can get different data,
Yeah,
different data sets.
yeah. There's definitely a lot of history node out there. You don't necessarily have to create one for yourself if you don't have to, right? So you mostly just create one due to loads, right? So the more people trying to get information, the probably the chances of having slow connection is probably high, right? So the only reason why you will ever want to create your own personal private node is so that you have less connection stream going to that endpoint,
Right.
right? You don't necessarily need one. I believe there is even so that if you're using Hyperion and then you want to see which endpoints are offering some history nodes, here's a link to that. So this endpoint, most especially for Wax, so this endpoint offers history nodes, right? So you don't necessarily have to create one. If you want to use one, just go through these endpoints and you should get all the information you want. You can
Can you
open
post
this up.
that link in either on our Discord or in the just somewhere so I can throw it over to
I
the
think I
chat?
sent it to you once, and I'm not sure if you still have it, but I can post the link into the Discord.
Yeah, let me. I think you did.
But I'm just gonna post the link to you again.
Because I'm on wax.usio.online endpoints, but I don't know if that's the right. Was that where you're at?
Yeah, all these endpoints are one you can use, right? So you can use any one. For example, I just opened API waxreading.org and I can see the documentation. I can see what I can get as information in terms of the history. I can get information about actions, which are the transactions.
Right.
I can check a transaction. I can get information about accounts and so on and so forth. And then I have the version 1, which is the raw data as well, which means I can also get information about the raw data from the blockchain as well if I want to. So you don't necessarily need a node if you
Right.
don't have to.
But so I guess the question is, if I wanted custom routes, like I wanted to hit a route that it got the assets, but it returned them in a way that didn't exist on any of these current endpoints, then having my own node would do that, correct?
You not necessarily to depend, right? So you can, yeah, you could do that. You can have your own node. The only thing is you will have to build some kind of like
Oh,
something in front of your node that will do that,
gotcha.
right? So the node itself would not just do anything for you. It's
Okay.
just there for you in terms of just getting the informations. So you have to build something in front of that node that will do exactly what you want, right?
Yeah. So Lee's Comic asked, and I think they may have joined a bit late because I think that I have a good understanding of this. I think. So they ask, I've always just called those nodes, are they all history nodes? As in they keep up with the blockchain history / data. I was thinking it was a node used to scrape individual account info. Um, the I guess maybe you can help answer that if I'm incorrect, but
Not necessary. Not every node is an history node. So let me see if I can get the. So every node can be started with different types of plugins, right? So you can start a node that is also a producer, an history node, and everything. You can definitely do that if you want, but not every node can. Not every node is definitely going to be a producer node, an history node, right? So you can have a node that has nothing to do with history. It doesn't have to store any history. All it does is just validate transactions and produce block, right? So you can have those kind of nodes. You don't necessarily have to have a node that has to store history, but you can also have a node that's a producer node and also stores history and also do
right.
all every other things. Of course, the requirement for those two things are different, because for a node that will produce and store the history, you probably need a much powerful hardware system than a node that would just create a block and just verify the block and so on and so forth. They all have a different kind of specifications, and not every node will give you those information. So for example, you can see the kind of information you can get from a normal node, right? So these are the where it says v1. This is the information you would normally get for a normal like node, history node, and see those informations. And some node will not offer these informations. I'm just trying to think I can get those information if I go to. I think ACO has a very much better documentation.
So you said the history plugin, right? What other
Yeah.
plugins are there? Because I think that kind of answers Climbing Moon's
Yeah,
question when
so
you read
there's
that
a
too.
lot of plugins. You can get those information here. So if you go here, right, so you can see there's a lot of plugins. So you have the Chain API plugin. It's always necessary, these two plugins, because you are part of the chain. So you need to tell the network to be part of them. But you can, this is the plugin we are using, right? We are using the state history plugin, and you have the producer plugin if you want to be a producer, but you don't necessarily have to like be a producer plugin, right? So you don't have to be a producer to store history, and you can be a producer and also store history, but it's not a must. That's what people have to understand. It is not a must for you to be both, but you can be both if you want.
Cool. Let's see, where are you at? You're on under plugins, under Nodios.
And you can
plugin.
check what each plugin is, right? So if you come to this website, to this ACO documentation, you can click on each plugin and you get more information about the plugin, the description of it. Like for example, the plugin, the producer plugin will load functionality required for a node to produce blocks, right? So this is what the node will have. It will have those functionality to do this. And then you can see which options there are for that and what is the dependency that you need for. Like I said, the chain plugin are always needed because you're part of a chain. And if you go, for example, to the history plugin, you will see what it says. It says it's useful for capturing historical data about the blockchain state. The plugin receives blockchain data from other connected nodes and caches the data into files. So this is what we are doing, right? So we are just getting those information from the other nodes, and then we are putting those information down, and then people can query those information later on.
Right.
Yeah.
How up to date? This might be a stupid question, but how up to date? I mean, is it in real? Is it as recent as the most current block? Like it, you know?
Yeah. So it depends. You can so you can start a node history from Genesis, from the beginning of blockchain.
Right.
So mostly when you do that, it would take some
like
time
a couple
for
days,
it to,
right?
a couple of weeks, I believe. It could take up to 2 weeks or even 3 weeks for it, because you have to understand the blockchain has been running for, I believe, over 2 years or 2 years or so. So it would take some time for it to get up to date. But
storage.
So what most people do is they don't start from Genesis. They start from some certain snapshot, right? So we have some like some nodes that store snapshot. That like those nodes for every particular date. I think it's not even date, it's hours or minute. I'm not so sure anymore. There's going to be a snapshot being taken of the blockchain, and then that snapshot is being stored. I think there are two sites that really offers those capabilities. So if you go here, if I check into the thing here, so this site, for example, from EOS Sweden, they offer this ability for you to get those snapshots, the latest snapshots. So we can open the website here, and then we can see oh shit, it's downloading already. I'm just gonna remove the latest there to get this file structure, so I can see which snapshot is the latest. Even the snapshot, they are not just really small. Most of them are about like 5 gigabytes and so of data that you need to get. And what happens is that you will start from a particular snapshot and then continue from that snapshot with the latest information that you're getting. So this is what most people will do.
Yeah. So Least Comic asks, could you upload a bootstrap of the data from Genesis to
you have here, for example, in this file, in this website here, you will get the Genesis, just JSON, how it looks. It will tell you what information, right? So it tells you the initial timestamp that the blockchain started, and the initial key it started with, and all like it just tell you how the blockchain started, and then the node will have to start getting information from this timestamp upward up to the latest block and so on. So this can really take some, and this is why this takes some time. You can see it has to start getting data from 2019, so it's gonna take it at least 2-3 weeks.
So Lex asks, can you continue to download history while running snapshot? While I guess so like what you said, it takes like 2 to 3 weeks, right? Is it going to be keeping up to date, or like is that 2 to 3 weeks before you can even start?
No. You could already start querying before those 2-3 weeks. It just wouldn't be, probably it wouldn't be the latest information you need, but you could start querying for information.
Well, what about like on the timeline? Like, let's say, for example, like we started this right now and we're doing everything. It's going to take 2 weeks, but then I start needing transactions for like this hour, like people doing transactions right now. Like I need to see those.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Those could be problematic because it might not really be up to those state yet. So it's still gathering information, still restoring a state to up to that state. So you only get information of states that has been restored.
Damn. Yeah. All right. I think that was your question, Lex Luthor. I hope I articulated it well enough. And did you see this link that Climbing Moon posted? Snapshots.eosnation.io.
No, sorry.
Here, throw this into the browser, dude. Look how.
Sorry, I'm not on the Twitch. I think I have to open the Twitch. I
threw it in Discord. It's all good. It's not huge. Just snapshots.eosnation.io. It's a better graphical interface for the snapshots than just go into like the one that looked like you were on a FTP site.
Oh, okay. Yeah. doesn't really matter which one
Yeah.
you
Right.
take. You just need a snapshot.
Right. Right.
If you
Right.
have
Cool.
any link to any snapshot, then you can use
Cool.
those. Yeah, mostly I just use what it's been offered already, so I don't necessarily have to concern myself with that anymore.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
Mm.
All right. So is our instance set up? Our EC2 instance?
Oh no, we're gonna finish setting it up. We didn't finish setting it up. Yeah, so once you get like I was just talking about the key pair, right?
Oh,
So
gotcha. Yeah.
you can create one. Mostly, if you create one, you could continue using it. I'm just gonna
Right.
create one for the
Yeah. So
purpose.
I've used I used Putty and WinSCP and such, and um, like it's pretty daunting if you're a complete noob at this.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can figure it out, and there's enough documentation, like the .pem and .ppk files. Like, what's the
Yeah,
difference?
yeah.
And
So
all of that, and
it's the same key but in different
right.
formats.
Yep.
It's like the EOS. If I think if like if you check the EOS the block, let me see, blocks IO, you will see that mostly you have keys that looks a little bit different,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Yep.
you can
Yep.
see the
Two
key.
versions. Yep.
It's the same key, it's just in a different
Yeah.
format.
And if you click on the
If I
key,
click
right?
on the
Yep.
key, I'll get a different format of
Yeah.
that key, and that is what the PEM and the PPK
Sweet.
are. There's just this key with a different format. So if you're using the key with an open SSH, you have to have it in this format. And if you're using it for
Putty. Yep.
PuTTY or WinSCP, then you have to have it in this format.
Yeah.
And since we are going to be using PuTTY and WinSP key, so we're just gonna have it in this PPK format, right? So you create the key pair, and then you tell it to create one. You get one, and it's been automatically downloaded. I have the key now, which means that I can then uh, like log into this instance whenever I'm ready. So I'm just gonna leave this network part open for now. Mostly, you would want to secure your instance if you want. If your reason for creating everything is private,
Mhm.
just for your own use case, then you probably want to secure your network. But for now, I'm just gonna leave this open just for test purpose. I'm gonna end
Cool.
up, like I said, we're gonna end up deleting this whole instance when we're done. Now, regarding the storage, because we only have about 128 gigabyte of RAM, and but we're mostly going to need a lot of more RAMs to run the whole node. So we're going to create extra storage that we're
Okay.
going to add to the memory, and that's what is being done here. This swap here. So
So
what
this
is
is, if I'm understanding this correctly, we're using uh, a hard drive storage uh, for our RAM. Kind of like
yeah,
how,
yeah,
like
yeah,
in
yeah.
Photoshop and Illustrator, they have like what's called scratch
So
disks.
yeah,
So is that what we're doing? We're setting
yeah,
like,
so yeah, you are actually. So what happened is, I don't know if, yeah, it's a concept of memory management. It's a little bit hard to explain, but I'm gonna try my best. So normally you don't have enough memory to run
right,
everything you have on your system, right? So
right,
you have to also understand whenever you're running an application, it's being run on your memory. Right, so normally you don't have enough RAM to run those things. So what happened is that there's a process of swapping that happens between your application data and the memory. So whenever there's something your application is not needed instantly, those
yeah,
information will be transferred onto your hard disks to be
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So in Windows, I
safekeeping.
believe it's
So
called a page file.
exactly,
Yeah,
paging is called
yep,
paging,
yep,
and that's what is happening. So what we are trying to do is increase the size of paging, right? So we're trying to have a paging space uh on our hard disks with a very much larger size. It says in
cool.
my mind, I just break it down to Windows, PuTTY, and Linux OpenSSH. Yeah, yeah, you could also think it that way. But one thing is you could also use OpenSSH on Windows. So it's it doesn't really matter at the end. You could,
Yeah,
but I can see, I can understand that.
cool. All right. What do we have to
So
store here?
yeah,
Yeah,
so
Mount Hady. I'm checking
what
this.
I end up doing,
All right, go ahead.
yeah, so what I end up doing is I end up creating three storages. Uh, this is the root storage. Doesn't really need to be much. And then I create another storage which is about 200 gigabytes, which I'm going to use as the swapping. And then I create a third storage. So this is where you also have to try to understand or imagine the kind of data you want to use, right? So if you're using, if you're trying to get information from Genesis, so the preferred storage, is about, I think,
Jesus Christ,
for
6
a full
terabytes.
storage, for a full storage is about, I think, 9 terabytes for a full storage, but for a partial storage it's mostly about 6 terabytes. And if we are
Damn.
starting from yeah, so depending on what you need, the kind of what you, when you're starting the whole thing, right? So for example, for a full storage you might need about 14 terabytes if you're
Jesus
running a
Christ.
full storage, right, for a full history node. But for a partial like node, you might be okay with about 6 terabytes, but it doesn't really matter. For now, we're just going to use something like 4 terabyte. Like I said, we're gonna end up deleting this whole instance, so it doesn't really matter now. So
Yeah, that's
these are the setup that I take. I have these three volumes. So the
okay.
first one is the root volume, and these other two are just like what I'm going to use. One is going to be for the swapping, and the other is going to be for data, for storing
Okay.
the history data and so on and so forth. And then that'll be all. That's all this thing you need to set up here. And then when you're done, you will launch the instance.
Cool.
So it might take some minute to fully be launched. Can open the instance. So, and I have it here. And then it's still running. So this might take some time to have it fully loaded. But once it's there, all I need to do is just get my endpoint. So one good thing about the Amazon is that you get a free public
Oh,
DNS
okay.
that you can use. So you don't
Right, right,
normally
right.
have to use the IP, public IP. You can just take the public DNS you want. And then we're going to have PuTTY open up and gonna give it. So then the user is Ubuntu on
Okay.
the AWS. I'm gonna say Ubuntu because I don't want to always type the username,
Right, 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 right. Yeah,
and give it
I've set up a bunch of light sail instances, and it's sometimes it's a challenge figuring out what the default host name or username and
yeah.
password that
So
they
the
set
default
on some of
host
those.
name is
Yeah, dude.
Ubuntu, and you
Okay.
don't necessarily need a password. You can use the sudo because
Yeah.
the Ubuntu user is part of the sudo group, so you can just use the sudo directly.
Okay.
If
Didn't I
you
see something about one the requirements being that an instance without sudo? Didn't I see that on the GitHub page?
yeah, that's the Docker. You need to be able
Oh,
to
okay.
run the
Gotcha.
Docker without sudo command, but we'll get to that. That is
Okay. Cool.
that's something you have to do when you set up Docker on your system. But for this, we're just trying to get into the
Okay. Cool.
system. And what I do is I will save the session. Don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to, so
Same.
that you don't have to
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
type the whole thing instead. So I'm gonna say test node, and then I'm going to add my key, which
Nice.
I
Yep.
already have. It's things downloaded where, which is here. Have my key in there. Go back, and then I'm just going to save it. And then I have
Sweet.
it here. Then I can open the node. Yeah, accept the connection, and
Sweet.
and then I'm inside
Yeah,
AWS.
dude. Yeah, that's super cool.
And this is where you then start to follow the information.
Okay.
Uh, for me, like I said, I mostly use this because it's already there. which means I just need to get something set up. And because I love the process of having a better performance CPU, what I do is I start with this, with the
Okay.
Wax documentation. Just get to the stage where I have the CPU setup, the swap setup to this stage.
Okay.
And after this stage, where I created my pool of my ZFS data pool, and once I created this, and then I jump back to
Okay.
this
Cool.
node. So you just start from here, which is just installing some normal packages that you need. Okay, so I need the sudo command, forgot. And then it's going to install all the packages needed. Let's see what is the permission locked. Okay. So in case if you get this error, it doesn't matter. You can also just log into the system as root by typing sudo -e.
Okay.
And if you do that, you will log into the system as root, and then you can just run everything without the sudo command. And now you shouldn't have any error.
Cool. What up, friend? Yeah, just walking through the installation of a Wax history node on AWS. Super exciting stuff if you're a tech nerd. All right, so now it is doing lots of stuff.
Yeah, it's installing the packages, all these packages that I'm going to be using. And when it's done, I'm going to install another package for this for a better CPU performance. Not necessary. All these are not necessary, right? So you don't necessarily have to do them. I do them because it's because it's been given us something you should do by Wax. So because I want to follow Wax and do what they ask me to do, so I just try to do. But you don't have to do that. So we're gonna echo the government for performance. Performance echoed, and then we're going to disable the on-demand system service. And then we're going to restart the CPU frequency service.
Is there anything that needs to be set specifically on these, or is this documentation giving you everything that you need to know? Just throw those in.
Yeah, here it's mostly just copy paste. You don't necessarily have to change anything. Where you have to change something is the next part. So mostly you can use this command to see which storage is being set up, right? Because you need to know the name of the storage you want to use for the swap and for your data and so on and so forth. And when I do this, I can see I have I have 3 storage.
Yeah.
So the first one is this, right, which is the 300 gigabyte, which is the root storage. So I have my Linux file running on this storage. I want to leave it this way. And the second storage is the 200 gigabyte, the one I was talking about, that we're going to be using this for the swap. Right. So we're going
That's
to use
the one that is like the page file kind of, right?
a page file for paging, right? And then this is going to be for the data, right? So we're going to use some kind of encryption software to compress the data that will be written into this hard drive and so on. So the first we're going to start with is this, right? So this is the drive name. This is what I need to know here. I need to know the name of the drive. So, and then I'm going to tell it to so I'm going to tell it to partition. First, you have to tell it to partition the drive. So this is where we have to be careful. For example, you cannot just copy paste and press enter. You need to then check if the name of the drive is the same as yours, right? So for me, I just want to partition the drive with the 200 gigabyte. I'm gonna do that. Hold on. Sorry, I don't need to partition. I forgot.
So, let me really quickly just grab this question here, and if you can elevator pitch this for me, what is the history node useful for?
The history node.
Yeah, like what we're doing. Like, just give me like a 1 or 2 sentence explanation. I mean, I could do it. Obviously, I just wanted to hear what. Like, if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had to explain it like two sentences, what would it be?
Yeah, to be, like I said earlier, if for example I'm trying to have a steady endpoint to get blockchain information from, and don't want to be, so for example, in competition with others trying to get information at the same time, because the more people on an endpoint trying to request data, the slower the server is. This is very logical, and you will need this for as something private for yourself, right? So something that you want to get, and then you are the only one requesting data from that endpoint. You are the only one doing stuff like that from that endpoint. That's the only biggest advantage I can say to it. Other than that, I don't necessarily see any other big advantage, because there's, like I said, if you are not constantly trying to request for data, if you're not constantly trying to do something with data all the time, and you want up-to-date information quickly as possible, then you don't have to. You can just use those public ones, and they should be sufficient for whatever you're going to do with them, right? But if for example you need constant data, and you are trying to accumulate those data in real time and as fast as possible, then this is a very way to do it.
Yeah, and I think the word history is kind of deceptive, right?
Okay.
Because it's
Yeah. The word history means that it's storing those information for you that you can then like grab at any time you need them. Yeah, I can get why it could be a little bit deceiving in terms of history, but it's history in terms of like you are getting the data that is being stored.
Yeah, and so I think they're talking about Upland. Can I snipe assets faster with this? There's this pickle guy that could buy assets in 0.2 seconds, and I guess how this would be relative in Wax. I know that Chain Champs has a very fast, or faster than Atomic Hub API or something. So I guess the question would be, based on your
Mm,
resources, could you move quicker
mm,
than, like, let's say,
mm.
Upland or Atomic Hub?
Not really, because what you're actually doing with the thing with the history API is that you are telling it not to be part of the blockchain. So which means you cannot submit transaction to that API.
Okay.
You can get information, but you cannot submit transaction. Yeah, maybe you can use it to get information quicker and then submit transaction quicker. You could do that, but you
Okay.
cannot use that endpoint to submit transaction. Right, so you cannot send transaction through that endpoint that will maybe go quicker, or anyway doesn't work that way, but you can use it to acquire information quickly as much as possible and then send transaction quicker.
Cool. And yeah, just for anybody joining the stream late, Capone Gaming, thank you so much. This is a highly technical, I would call it, stream, not something that we normally do. On Thursdays, we will be doing technical streams. We had a perfect opportunity to go over this history node today, being that I did ask Hady for help with it. So yeah, here we are. Cool.
Yeah, so the next step is to swap, right, the drive, which is the 200 gigabyte drive that I showed earlier. So we just need to make sure here that the name of the drive is definitely the one we are trying to use for the swap, right? So if you check here, the name of the drive should correspond to what I'm trying to pass in as parameter here. So I'm just gonna try and zoom it a little bit, but it doesn't seem to be working on my part. So I have the name of the drive for swap, and then I swapped the drive. So it tells me that the drive is in swap space, which means then I can then add the drive to the list of the swap drive. information of the Linux system. So this is what I'm doing with this command here. Is saying that, okay, I want to add a new entry into the list of the swap drives or the swap data information of the Linux. When I enter this, I then have to enter the information. I'm just going to do a copy paste here, but
Yeah.
make changes according to how it's supposed to be. So if I paste this here, I then go back and make the changes to the drive name, right? Always
Okay.
remember the drive name has to correspond to the one you want to use. So I'm using one N1 drive, which is the drive with the 200 gigabyte.
Cool.
I forgot. I should have shown you guys how the swap is before I do all this. Hold on. Let me see if I can do this. If I can show you guys first before I enter this command. Okay. So if I show you this, right? So if you see the swap, do you see swap?
Yeah.
You can see swap has nothing for now. It says it's 0 kilobyte, right? So now if we go back and then we do our command, right? We do our command. Then we enter the swap data. Of course, remembering to pass to make sure the name of the drive is what we want. Exactly. And then we close out. And then we just have to tell the system to start to enable the new swap entry we've just entered, which is done. Now, if I go back to the HTOP, you can see the swap is now 200 gigabyte, right?
Yeah. Hey, Hady, can you make that terminal window any bigger? Can you maximize it? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. So I think it's the font. It's probably the issue, I would imagine. Sorry about that, climbing.
Nah, no problem. I'm trying to maximize zoom it, but I don't.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it either. Maybe I'll look into that after the stream. I thought that might be a problem. I am sorry about that, climbing.
Oh, then there should be a way. I should be able to zoom it. Why am I not able to zoom? Hold on, F10.
You can make the font bigger in Putty, Mountain Doomy says. What?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, I should be able to do that. Hold on. Let me see. So terminal. Where is it? Features. Windows appearance. Yes. So. Exactly. So
under settings, window appearances.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah.
So let's see. We're gonna make it a little bigger.
Yeah,
bold.
Yeah.
And use some funny stuff.
Oh yeah, fixed system. Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Fixed system. Deja vu seems a little bit bolder than this. Just
that one's good. Yeah, we'll go with that.
So. Okay, so I'm just quickly gonna close this, and
then if you open it back up, it'll give you the new settings. I didn't know that.
Let's see.
That doesn't look like
it doesn't look like it changed anything. Let's see. Nope. Okay, let's see.
So I think maybe it's the Windows setting, right? Windows appearance, font settings, maybe outside of Putty.
Oh, okay. So the changes
did you not save it?
I think I didn't save it because the changes did not change.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. There
Let's
we go.
See. Okay.
And then click save. I don't know where you would save it at. I guess back where you load it. Yeah, I think you have to go back to the session.
Yes,
and then save there. Click that and then
save and then open. Yeah,
Damn it.
it's a little bit bigger, I believe, but not that much. Okay, it could also be that because I already have one closed. Let me close everything. See. Sorry guys, I'm not also a big user of Windows and PuTTY. Mostly work on my Linux.
Huh.
But I've got to start using Windows more often as well. So let's see, why is it not changing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know myself why it's not.
So this is what I'm choosing.
So you need to go to change settings window and set it there. So I don't. Where's change settings at? Server fault guy says this.
Session. So
the answer is click on change settings, change everything, but then you have to also click on the session name again and save. I don't know.
Yeah, so the changes is not trying, it's not staying, but it's supposed to stay. Terminal, Windows, appearance.
Let me open. I don't think I even have PuTTY installed on this new OS that I have running. Actually, I don't. So Climbing Moon says, I think if you load, then change, then save, it'll work.
Ah, okay. Hold on.
Thank you, Climbing Moon.
Ah, okay, so I get it. So you go to appearance, you make your changes. You make your changes, say okay. Then you go to your session set and say save. Right, so it should save actually. Yeah. So it's open.
And then Nunex says, yeah, and no terminals open.
Okay. Pretty, let's see. Test node, load, appearance, yeah, so the changes should be there. Okay, my auto stuff. Okay, login session. So it should be there now. Test node. The information in the off here, what happened? Ubuntu.
It overwrote your host name.
Yeah. Gotta put it back. Okay, save. Let's see, the changes is still there. Great. So open.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, open. I think I closed my session. Open to my instance. So this is the instance I'm running. Yep. Put it. Test node, load. Let's check. It's still there. Okay, mistakes again. I see what the problem is. The username is wrong. Ubuntu.
I think Consolas is the same font. In fact, I know it is, that you would see in VS Code.
Oh.
Just random fact I'm throwing out there.
Okay. Should be It.
And it says doing stuff like this in Windows is such a pain. I'm a big Linux user. Just use
Yeah,
Windows for gaming.
I'm also a big Linux user, but I've got to learn how to use Windows.
Yeah, he is
Uh,
using Windows on my request since that is my preference.
yeah, so we should be much better now. I think it's a little
Yeah,
bit
we
too
do.
big,
Hell
but
yeah.
we should be okay with this. Yeah, it's okay.
Cool.
Yeah, so we can see the swap, right? So the swap is now 200 gigabyte, and that's what we want, right? We want some large space on our swap.
Yeah, yeah. That is much better. It was good call out, Climbing Moon. Thank you. I was maximizing the window, but now I can sit back here and see just fine. So excellent. All right. What step are we on now? We're doing the
Yeah,
8th
so
step.
we are on this step. So let's go back. Right, so we did this step, this adding the swap, right, and then
Mhm.
we tell it what we want to do with the swap. So the next step is actually just creating our mount data on the second drive, right? So it's the same thing. If you're following this document, is the same thing you would do here, right? So this is the step where you're creating a mount. You're creating a, a folder on the second drive on the much larger drive, right? So it's the same thing you're going to do here. Create a folder on the second drive, right? So you can follow whichever documentation. It's going to tell you to do the same thing here. I'm just going to take this. It's much simpler here. So you can take that and then, like I said, go back and always remember to change the drive name. So,
Yep.
and if you don't remember the drive name, here's the command you need for the drive name. So if you go back to the dev wax dev, you will
Hmm.
see the command you need for the drive to see the drive names in case you don't remember which drive you're using. So if you type fdix point air, you should get the drive name. So if you want to see
Cool.
the drive name again, you
Yep.
can just type this. You need permission. Yes, it's denied. You can use sudo command with this and then
Nice.
get it, or you can sign in into the Linux as root. You do that by
Yeah.
typing sudo and and then you would go into the system as a root, and as a root you don't need to use the sudo command, right? You
Gotcha.
just call the command and you get the same thing. So we need the drive name. This is the drive name with the 3
Okay.
terabyte that we need.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's a lot of
so
space, man. And the 14 that for the full node, like that's just mind
yeah,
boggling, man.
and that's just for something we know we're going to probably end up just deleting very soon.
Right. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So we're going to create a pool with the Z utility. Um, uh, Good thing the drive name is the same here, so I can
Okay,
just
cool.
press enter, and then I have the Z data drive. It doesn't have to be named Z data. I just use this for now. This can be any name you choose to. You can name it whatever you want to name it here, to your own preference. You set this compress information. Someone said for
Good
notes,
point. Yeah,
better
that
not
makes
log in a row, just use sudo command. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, so you don't end up destroying anything. Yeah. So you use the second command because it's z data, so I'm just using the name z data, so I can then just use these two commands and then have everything this way.
Yeah, man. You know what I learned from using the command line, like putty and all of this, is that like it's super intimidating, but you don't have to remember any of it, like at all. It's like literally all copy paste, like for the most part. There
Yeah.
are some very important ones that you do need to have
Yeah.
memorized, but very few.
Yeah,
And
mostly you just have to,
yeah,
depending on what you're doing, you probably memorize some basics one, like
right,
how do I delete a file? How do I
right.
create a directory? How do I create a file? All those things are like very basic. You can remember them,
Yeah.
and more the rest is things that you probably can quickly Google and then get the information as you need them.
Agreed.
Yeah, so here we can reboot the system if you want, but we don't necessarily have to. Like if you're following the information here, that's why you don't necessarily have to reboot the system, but we
Okay.
can reboot the system if you want. If you want to, mostly it's good practice to do that, so you know everything has been set. So we're just going to go ahead and reboot it, and then we'll log in back in there. Yes,
Okay.
I know. So now we reboot the system. This might take some time for the Linux to be back up again.
Cool. Yeah, OP. I hear you. I
I
kind of
said my head
pre-warned.
is spinning on all of this. You're saying it's easy because you're copy pasting. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you are right. It's easy because you're copy pasting. The point is you just need to understand. If you understand the whole operation behind it, then it's easy, right? So as long as you understand what you're doing, right, you have to understand what is this command doing. If you understand what the command does, then it doesn't really matter. You can copy paste as many copy paste as you want, and of course, exactly like the what non crypto said, exactly that.
Yeah.
If you
Cool.
understand what it's doing, just copy and paste. You don't have to rewrite anything if you don't have to. Of course, for beginners, when you if you go to a if you're taking a computer science classes, they tell you to write the code and just not copy paste. But that is only because if you're a beginner, you need to do that and to kind of try to memorize what you're writing and try to understand while you're writing. But once you understand most of the basic and you understand what you're doing, you don't necessarily have to rewrite something. You can just copy paste it, and
Cool.
that'll be all.
Hey, speaking of computer science, while we're waiting on this to reboot, why don't you give the audience just a quick background on your technical acumen? When did you start getting into dev stuff? What is your primary coding language? And I guess where you are currently in your learning process.
So I started with coding, I think about 8 years ago. Just something I was doing on my own time, watching YouTubes and stuff. And then at some point, I believe that was 7 years ago, I decided to go for a major in computer science. Right, so I started my bachelor studies, which I finished about 2 years ago.
Hmm.
After that, I decided I just wanted to do the master course as well, just to see what is being offered
Uh-huh.
during the master and so on. So I did the master as well,
Master's in
and
computer science,
yeah,
correct?
master in computer science. That's what I'm
Nice.
currently doing. I still have about, I think about 6 months to be done with that. I have to do one or two more subject that I still need to do, and then I have to write my thesis, and I'll be done with that.
Nice.
In terms of preference in language, truth be told, I don't necessarily have any preference. I work with any language if I have to, even if I don't know anything about it. I take the time and get some documentation about it, read the documentation, and then get myself up and ready
Hell
with
yeah.
that language. So I don't necessarily have a preference language. Yeah, I've used a lot of Python and Java during my my study and also while I was working and so on. I use even now I use a lot of Java and TypeScript and JavaScript for work. Uh,
Yeah, and welcome Raiders. Damn it, I was gonna turn rating off just because I didn't want to
yeah,
disappoint people. We're this is a highly technical stream that we're doing. At least I would call it highly technical. Um,
yeah,
there
yeah,
is,
yeah.
I think, a definite need for this to be documented and at least referenced somewhere, and that's kind of why we're doing it. We had a perfect opportunity because we need to get this history note up, and that's where we're at with it. Hady is our backend smart contract genius who is walking us through that. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you'll learn something. If you have any questions, I am actively monitoring the chat, so fire them out there. Yeah, all right, sweet. Yeah. You bet, dude.
Yeah, so non crypto made a very nice comment there. Yeah, you're right. Normally, I wouldn't do this either. Normally, I would just write a script, put all those commands in there, and then let the script do that. But I'm trying to also let people know where those commands are coming from. It's easier if you just put a script together and just run it, and then people start looking at you like, what kind of magic are you doing? So I just want people to know where those sources are coming from, those information that I'm using, and
Hell
and
yeah.
those command I'm using, where they are coming from, and so on.
Cool. All right. So our install finished. That's
Yeah, yeah.
what were
So
we waiting?
so we rebooted after
Oh,
we
reboot.
we created the the folder on the bigger drive, right? So we created
Okay.
a folder on the bigger drive. We tell it which kind of compression we want the data to be on that folder, and then we reboot the system, right? So right now we can somehow check to see if everything is in place. We don't necessarily have to do this, but if you are following this along, you should do this definitely, just to be sure that
Okay.
everything has been set, right? So you can do this just to be sure. And the mount, normally I don't mount extra I don't mount into any extra data because, like I said, I'm going to run everything on a Docker, so
Okay.
I don't normally do any extra. All these steps is not, I don't do them.
Okay. So
There are few.
we're going to deviate
Yeah,
from
we're going to deviate
the
from
beginner.
this,
Okay.
from the rest of all this. We're going to come back here and get this information, the configuration information.
Okay.
We're going to come back for this, but then we can leave everything the way it is here. We just need to do this up to the stage of having our data
Cool.
drive set up and everything set up. The same thing if you follow here. So once you reach this stage, you can just say, okay, I'm done with this document. You don't have to necessarily follow this, and then we come back to the document that we're going to end up using, which is the Docker. So first and foremost, you probably need to install Docker. So on a new instance, you definitely don't have Docker, that's for sure. And to install Docker is also very easy. Just go to
Huh.
the
I'm
just
just
go
saying,
to
it's what I've struggled with the most lately, and I know why I'm
Docker.
struggling. Yeah, dude, it's because I just tried to just pick it up and be like, yeah, how hard could it be? And then I tried without any documentation, any tutorials, nothing, and tried to just learn it on my,
Yeah.
and such a stupid way to approach things, but it's a kinesthetic way, and that's how I learn. But I'm wondering why commands aren't working,
Mhm.
it's because I didn't do any training or any education on it, which that is going to cease soon. I'm going to go through
Yeah,
at
so
least.
installing Docker is really, really easy. Like all you need to do is just follow this instruction here. Like if you follow this instruction, you would not have any single problem. Like it's just follow exactly what they tell you to do here. So we're gonna go through this together, right? So we start with the first command. Normally you don't need to do this because you have never installed anything, but just for learning sake, we're going to call this command. But normally you would not need this command. If you are running Docker on a freshly installed Linux system, you would not need to call this command. But we're going to go ahead and just say this, and then we'll get this and says, okay, all this package you're trying to uninstall, we don't even know them. We cannot locate them, which is okay because we don't have them already, right? So, and then the installation method, we're going to follow this installation method that says installing through repository, which means we're going to first copy the first command. Like we're just going to do, what we're going to do here is just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste till we are done. That's why I said installing Docker is easy, but maybe it's easy for me, but not necessarily easy. So we're just going to go ahead and copy the next command as well.
So Lunex asks, I only used Docker and Linux before, found it super buggy. How is it these days?
It's okay. It's really okay. I think the latest version is really comfortable. It's really okay. It's really nice. The problem I still have with the Linux Docker is that it doesn't, when you install the Linux engine, it doesn't install with the Docker Composer. Docker Compose, so you have to install the Docker Compose extra as well. That's the only thing. Like unlike Windows, when you install the Docker desktop on Windows, you get all those tools. You get the Docker Composer and everything you need. But with Linux, you have to install Docker Composer extra. Apart from that, I think the latest version is really stable and working great. Yeah, so we go with the next command. It's gonna be a lot of copy paste here. So, and then just answering yes to every question. And then we go for the next command.
So if I'm understanding, what we're doing now is putting the Docker application on the EC2 instance that we created.
Exactly. That's what we're doing. We're just installing Docker on this EC2 instance we've created.
Right. Why are we deviating? Like, what's the advantage to doing it this way?
There is really no, I cannot see any big advantage other than the advantage that Docker has, right? So if by some way there's something not working, I can just delete the Docker instance, right? So, and my system will still be clean the way it's supposed to be. If I install things directly into my system, sometimes on Linux, it's really harder to just uninstall things if they come with some maybe extra data that have been stored in other locations, where you have to know which locations those data are stored for you to delete them and so on and so forth. When you have a Docker, when you install something through the Docker container, you can just delete the whole container or delete the whole image and you are done, right? And then start all over again, however you want. It's the only advantage I can see. The disadvantage is that the Docker is not necessarily getting all those resources that your system is giving directly, right? So that's the only disadvantage I can see to that. But like I said, we are just doing this for the sake of testing purpose, so we don't really care about those information. But mostly that if you're doing this, they tell you to run it on a bare metal, which means to not use Docker engine or whatsoever. But it doesn't matter. You can also use Docker engine if you want, depending on the hardware you're using. Right? If you have a very good hardware, I would say just use Docker. It's no problem. At any moment of time, if you decide that you want to use the system for something else, you just remove the system off, and then you are done. Okay, so we are following, we're just following this command, right? So you can see we are not doing anything. We are copying the command as been told by the official Docker page. So we're going to continue doing this till we finish the installation here, right? So I'm going to go here and then set update our system, then get the next command, which is the actual installation of the Docker.
Nice.
So this is where we are going to install the Docker. So we did the preparation of getting the Docker repository, the Docker key for confirmation, and so on and so forth. And now we're going to install Docker. Tell it yes.
Yeah, and shout out to Kush Dubs. Yes, TD, T Davis, Trent, whatever you want to call me. Us going through this this installation of this Wax node. Welcome everybody. Anybody who is sticking around for this absolutely deserves a gift sub. So thank you so much for watching. And yeah, you bet. Cool. So once Docker gets installed, and I'm guessing we're going to get to the
Docker is now installed, right? Okay. So that's why I said installing Docker is easy, because now you have Docker running on the system. Yeah. Right. So now you can test this command. Which is where is it? Yeah. So we are going to skip this second here.
Okay.
Right, because this is for installing a specific version of Docker. Since we just want to install the latest version, we don't really care about this second one. We're gonna go up to the third steps, which is the verification of Docker actually working. So we're going to run the sudo docker run command. And then we should see Docker is working, right? So it tells us it's running the Hello World application. It downloads the image, and then it shows us this is working. Everything is perfect. And now if we do sudo
You got a typo there.
docker
You got a
image,
typo, Hady. Yeah.
sudo docker images, we can see that we have this hello world image already installed.
Hey.
Yeah, we can, and we now know that Docker is fully installed. And if you go back here into the documentation, you will see that they tell you to configure Docker to run without sudo.
Right.
So
I
to
saw
do that, is also very easy. You come to the same page where you've downloaded the Docker, go to the last steps, and then click on post installation step for Linux. Right, so you click on
Okay.
post installation step for Linux, and then it will tell you how to run Docker as a non-root user.
Excellent.
So this is where you just have to follow the same scenario. And to do that here, we're just going to go ahead and copy this command as well. Although we're going to get the information that the group already exists, but I'm just going to go ahead and just show you guys one-to-one. Here it's going to tell me that the group already exists, which is okay. I already know that. And then I'm going to tell it to add the user to the Docker group, which is the Ubuntu user. So now this user, this Ubuntu user, is part of the Docker group. Now it says to log out and log back in, which we can do. We can just, to do this, we can just say we're going to log in as root and then log back out. And then we are back in. And now we can run the next command. And now we should be able to run this docker run word without using the sudo command, right? So now we can do this, and then we can so you can run the docker without the sudo command, and that's just that. Right, so like I said, the installation of Docker is really straightforward. Follow the documentation, and then everything is done the way it's supposed to be done.
Cool.
And now is where we start getting the node up.
Okay.
So first we need to get this repo, this wax node repo. So we go here. I will copy the git HTTP endpoint.
Yeah, that's the way I do it. Yep.
And then I just git clone that endpoint. So every Linux system, I believe, comes with a git, so you don't necessarily have to install the git in case people that are seeing. How much is a wax node? Boo.
Yeah, I just said we're doing it absolutely the worst way. Doing it on AWS is by far the most expensive way to do it.
I could probably show you guys how much is it. Hold on. I made a mistake. Hold on, I'm going to go back and then go into the drive I created, because I want everything to be in that drive. Exactly. And here is where I'm going to make my git clone and then give my h222. I could not create work directory works node permission deny. Yes, because I'm running this in a directory that I do not have right to do so. So I need to use the git clone command and then do this. Then I have this here, and in order to just like go away from this having this issue, that because I do not have permission to use this data, I can use a command called chown, and then I'm going to tell that I want this user, which is Ubuntu, to be the owner of the Z data folder.
Okay.
This way I will have the right to create directories and file inside this folder, because I created this folder using the root, right? If you remember, so the root was the owner of this folder, which is why I got this error that I do not have permission to write or read from this folder. And this is what I'm going to get that right of writing and reading from this folder. I'm going to tell the sudo command, I forgot one, I'm going to tell it that to be recursive. That means if there's any other folder and files inside that document, I want to still be able to be the owner of those files and document. And then I type enter. And now I have right to this folder as Ubuntu user. And I can create folder, create files, and all other things I need to do in that folder. So if I watch now, I have this Wax node in this folder. I can cd into it, which is Wax node. And then I should see whatever is inside, right? And what I normally start with is I need to set up my directory that I want to use for the node and everything. So I'm gonna go back here, and first I'm going to create a directory called Wax. Wax history node. Right, so I create this directory. It can be any name. It doesn't have to be this same name that I'm using. It's just for learning purpose. And I should see that I have this in here. I have a folder called Wax history node Wax. And the information I need to change is if I go into this Wax node folder, I will see that I have some files, right? So I have this start sh file, I have this stop sh file, I have the I have something called Nodios folder, and then I have some README, some service Wax that I can use to start the Wax as a service. So the first thing I'm going to start with is the start sh file. So I need to edit this file. I don't necessarily have to. I can use it the way it is right now. If I want everything to just how do I put it? I'm trying to organize the way the folders are, but I don't have to.
Okay, so gotcha.
You can just go into this Wax node and then just do the start sh. Sorry, you can first do this. You can say, you know what, I'm gonna do this way instead of just going some long route. I'm gonna do it the way it's supposed to be done.
Okay, cool.
So first I'm going to go into the Nodios, right? I'm gonna go into this Nodios. And if I print out the files and information here, I have this folder called config.
Okay.
I'm going to go into the folder and then see what files are in there. So this is where I have these two files, right? So I have the configuration and I have the Genesis, right? So what I want to do here is edit that Genesis file with my information, with the information that I want in the kind of node I want to run, the kind of plugins that I want the node to have, the kind of functionality that I want the nodes to have, and so on and so forth. And so that's what I'm going to do.
You're not going to use Vim for that, are you?
You can use Vim. I prefer to use Nano. I know I'm old school, but I'm used to Nano, and I know how to get around my way with Nano. But you can use Vim if you are a Vim fan and you know how to use Vim. You should do that as well. There's a lot of. I'm sure there's also something called I forgot the name. Start with T. Some kind of editor that starts with T. You can use that as well. But I'm going to use Nano, so it's going to be config. And this is how it's going to be, right? So, and if you remember, I told you guys that we're going to come back to this here, to this folder for the configuration data. So what I do is I take this configuration data just the way it is.
Okay.
All right, I take this everything the way it is here. Just copy it. I'm gonna edit some small things in here, but just the IPs. I'm gonna edit the IPs and stuff with the kind of IP I want. But I just copy everything here. Go back here, and then I'm going to hold on.
I would be editing this with WinSCP and in VS Code most likely.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. That's how I would do it. Hold on. Let me do that. Probably it's much easier for people that are not very familiar with Linux. And so I'm just gonna close this. I'm gonna close this, right? Cool. And then I'm gonna open WinSCP. I have that installed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I find it just it's the WinSCP. If you're not familiar with it, I would what I found a good comparison is like FileZilla, if you've ever worked with
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
or
exactly.
um, I think there's a bunch of competitors that do all the same thing, and it's
Mhm.
file transfer essentially. But you can edit like almost directly. Like if you, I think what Hattie's going to do here is you're going to
Yeah.
connect
So
to your
now
putty session, right?
if you, yeah, if you want to do, so you can go here, tools, and say import
Yeah,
and restore configuration, and then it will take all the information you stored
the putty, right?
in the potty. Yeah. So if
Yeah,
I
yeah,
go
yeah.
here and said okay, so go away, import site, sorry,
Yeah,
and
there you
then
go.
I
Yep.
can tell it I want this test
Test
node.
one.
It
Yep.
has already put together, and then I get the test node, right?
And then
So I
boom,
have
log in and we're
everything.
good.
I'll get here. I think I have to change something because I think the key always gets lost. Yeah, my key always
Oh,
gets lost. I didn't
huh.
put it there. I remember that I forgot to put the key
Nice.
in there. So I'm gonna put the key in there. Okay. And then here I can just save and log in.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And then I'm logged in, right?
Yeah, so
So
now you have like your very
I can go
common
here.
file folder structure, and it's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
much
So you
easier to
can
look
see
at.
the file we created, the Z data. So we can go into it, and then we have this wax node, right? Go into the wax node, and if you remember, we were inside this nodeos, and in this
Hmm.
configuration file, and the file we want to edit is the configuration, right?
Yep.
So we
I
can
think,
just
and this even has an editor, I think, right? Like, which is still better than command line editing. I think you can right click here and
yeah, you can double click here. Just double
yeah,
click,
yep,
and
yep.
you have this file open. And like I said, we're going to delete everything here, and then come back here, copy everything here from just from the chain state DB up to the last peer-to-peer address. I'm going to copy this, go back into that file, and then paste everything in there.
Boom.
So here is where I would normally make some changes. So the default, normally the default IP is 888. Can be any IP. You don't have to necessarily use this. You can leave this like this, and then I
That
have
this is where we're going to be pinging to,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So this is the endpoint, the HTTP endpoint,
Okay.
and then this is the S3 endpoint, right? So this is the S3. This is the what is it called? The name is I forgot the name. This is the web the S3 endpoint that will return streams of data. So you can
Gotcha.
connect to this S3 endpoint and get streams of data that you can work with and do every other thing you want to do with. So we have the plugin. Like I said, we have these two plugins are always dependency for every other plugin you want to use. So we have the two plugins, and then
The
we have our
chain API plugin,
the
and
chain API and the chain plugin. You
okay,
always need
cool.
them because you, like I said, you are part of a chain, and then you need those plugin. And here is where you can have history plugin. You can have other extra plugin like a
Yep,
producer
yep, yep.
plugin if you have to produce. I think did I throw away? Oh yeah, I have it here. So these are all the plugins you can have if you want. But for now, we are just using the chain API, the chain plugin, and of course the state history plugin. This is what we're using, right? So we have this there, and then you have some information about the syncing, like how many milliseconds does it have to sync. You have the transaction time that you want to check that the blockchain. You have the HTTP response time. You can have different changes here depending on what you're trying to do. Like I said, here we are explicitly saying that we do not want to accept transaction, which means when you send a
Okay.
transaction to this endpoint, it will fail because we are not doing anything with transaction. We are not trying
Ah,
to verify transactions or even submit transaction or anything. So this is why this is false. Also from other node, we are telling other node not to send us transaction for verification
okay.
because we are not doing that, and so on and so forth. And
Wait, so
this
let
is
me look
the
at that max transaction time. It's 100 milliseconds, right?
yeah.
Would I change that for any reason?
Not necessary. Like I said, mostly what we are doing here is history, so we
Uh-huh.
don't necessarily. We can leave this with as default values as
Because they're going to
they
be
are.
quick enough as they are. They're not going to be
Exactly,
held up
exactly,
or take a bunch of
exactly,
CPU. Okay.
exactly. So we can leave this as it is, and then we just save this file, which is saved, and then we can just open again to be confirmed that it's saved. Here we have the
Nice.
file saved,
Yeah.
and then if we go back into our Linux system and then just refer back to the root of the wax node, we can then here do the, we can like call the the start sh file, but we could probably just see what the stat sh file is doing so that people also can understand what is going on. So if you open the start sh, you will see that you will start by defining a variable. The variable is called wax version. So this is the wax version we are using, and then we have the nodules root on the Docker, right? So this is how the Node.js is being installed on the Docker, the root system. And then we tell the Docker where to store the information on our host system. For now, if we set this data, if we set this information as a variable, we will take that as an environment variable, we will take that information. If not, we will take the current working directory
Yep.
as
PWD. Yep.
this. So this is why I said it's not necessary, but normally, what I did is I will come here, change this old data here, and tell it my direct location. Right, like for example, the wax history node directory I created, I could tell it that
Okay.
exactly
Cool. Cool.
if
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to, but you don't have to. So we have this main snapshot directory, and what is happening is that we have these two functions
Okay.
that are being called down here when we start. The first one is starting from a snapshot. So what happened is that the downloaded snapshot will then be converted, right? So into a file that can be read by the Docker file, by the Docker
Okay.
system, Node.js system. What we definitely have to do here, you see, I forgot, thank God I opened this file again, is to open the port, the the other port that we've said we want to open, right? So because we've said we want S3, an S3 node, and we have an S3 endpoint. So we also want to open that S3 endpoint. So you can copy this first slide here, paste it here, and then the endpoint is, I think I made it 8080. So
Cool.
we wanted to open that endpoint definitely. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're just going to copy this and come back here and then tell it the port to open. Because we want S3 endpoint, and we already we said where the S3 endpoint is supposed to be, so we need to have this here too. So this is one thing you have to remember to edit and make sure it's part of
Okay.
this.
Cool.
And then you should save this file. Once you save it, everything should then be done. So, and this is where the process might take some time to get done, because once we said start, it will first download the snapshot, right? And then it will start unpacking the snapshot and then start to try the system with that snapshot. So if we then say start here, we will get this loading, trying to load the snapshot. This can take some minutes, or I think, yeah, on this system it should be faster. I think it's about 5 GB of file needs to be
Okay.
downloaded. Yeah, but it should still be faster.
Cool. Cool.
So basically, that is the steps, right? So once you do this, you will then have to wait, I think, about an hour or about 40 minutes for the chain to get the data from the snapshot, and then start start receiving block information and so on and so forth.
So it'll be up to date, and if I'm understanding this correctly, it'll be up to date and current in about an hour with the history starting from the snapshot, whatever the date
Exactly,
on that was,
exactly.
up
So it
until real time, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly,
Cool. And then the major advantages again are latency or speed and not competing with other people.
exactly.
Let me ask you this: Is your so these list of endpoints that you showed me?
Mhm.
How would like does it automatically? Do we automatically get put on that, or is that something that
No, 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 no.
you ask to be put
You
on?
would, yeah, yeah, you would have to share that, of course, because they cannot
Right.
know your endpoint, right? So because what we're doing now is going to be running locally, right? So we would have to
Right.
use some kind of proxy to then share, to then make this public, to then say, okay, I want this data to be public to everyone or something like that, which means then you have to maybe make this publicly for everyone if you want to share it with people, but you don't have to, right? So it's not necessary for you to do.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And I mean, obviously, it would be a huge disadvantage to your latency
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. I
speed
mean,
if, but it's
yeah, yeah,
also something that's needed.
yeah, yeah.
Shared
Yeah, yeah,
resources and so
you can
forth.
have it also as something to share between the community,
Yeah.
because the more endpoints there is, then the more the load can be balanced between different, so other people can use those other endpoints and so on and so forth.
Cool. And then, so the main thing that this is, or the main use for this history API is going to be the get table rows, right?
Yeah, yeah, you get table rows, you can also get block information, transactions information, and so on and so forth. And mostly what people would do is they would then have a different service that's running using the S3 endpoint, like the ones I just showed you, right? So those endpoints I showed you, they have a different endpoint, a different service running, which is the Hyperion service. So what that service is doing is that it's getting those information, is getting those stream of information from that endpoint, and then somehow transforming those information uh, into data that can be stored inside an elastic search
Okay.
engine,
Yeah.
that then you can then query those elastic search engine for getting information and so on and so forth.
Right. And all of
You
that
don't
will
have to
be
use Hyperion. There's also a different uh, tools that you could use. I believe if I look at here, I think there's another one. So if you go here, so if you check the repository here, there is something called, let me see, what is it called? What is it called? Uh, so you can use also ZeroMQ plugin to get the information, to build another service in front of that history plugin. But he also has a plugin or a tool that he created that you can also use. Where is it? I cannot remember the name. Let's see, chain DB. Probably under this history tools, probably. Plugin receiver.
how are we getting spam comments on this? We got 30 people watching. So let me ask you the API that I hit pretty frequently when I'm doing
Mm.
front end stuff is the atomic acids API.
Yeah, yeah.
Where so if we wanted uh
You could get your own yourself one as well. So if you, there's a tutorial about that as well uh from Wax. So you can see they have this atomic
oh yeah,
asset
look at that.
API, market
Yeah.
API, which means you can have a node that is directly getting information about the atomic asset.
Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah.
In that node, you will have a Postgres database that is storing those information in real time, and then it's it's at the same time it's an history. It's an history chain, but you are customizing it in a way that you are getting only atomic up information, and then
Yeah.
you are storing those information into the Postgres.
So I
That
think it's making the distinction that it's atomic assets and not necessarily atomic hub info, right? So atomic
Yeah,
assets would be
yeah, yeah,
that's the NFT standard, and
yeah, yeah. That'll be the
it's what
NFT.
you use on Wax, just
Yeah,
period, right? And so
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. So that would be like the NFT data, in which I use it all of the time. Is it going to be just as expensive to run an AA API on is it all the same specs right there? It looks kind of like it does.
Yeah, probably apart from the terabyte, you need 2 terabytes. Yeah, but no, it looks like it's the same thing, right? So if
Fuck.
you're gonna have a full history node, you need about 7 terabytes of SSD, and then you have to also think about the other service, like you're going to need a Postgres, which will be advisable to have as a different service.
Yeah, looks like Nunex looks like they extended that
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
free
yeah, yeah.
access until March 31st, 2023. I can't recommend it any more than I already have, which is a ton. I would
It's
just
really, really a good start. Like for a beginner friendly, it's the
yeah,
best
dude.
way to start. And
Yeah.
like non crypto said, you can transfer everything you learn there into Wax.
And that is the key, man. That's such the key. Nobody told me that early on. And so I'm like ignoring all of these incredible resources and going to like the horrible developer.wax.io
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
nonsense.
started with ACO. If you remember, I always look at the ACO docu. Even when
Right.
I'm doing things, I come here. This is my source of information. I come
Right.
here, I go to the ACO CDT, I get the information I need, or read through something if I need to understand how something is working, or why is it working the way it's working. So this is my source of information. When I need
Yeah, dude.
something, I come here, I check through it and see what I need and why I need it, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely 100%.
And it's not just the CDT, it's also for the ACO. You can get the information you need about the ACO and how things are put together and so on and so forth.
Yep. All right. Where are we at with this?
Yeah, so now it's unpacking the snapshot.
Okay.
So after that is done, yeah, see it's unpacking the snapshot. Now it's downloading the Wax blockchain from the Wax team Docker, which is the production node, the production
Okay.
image. And after it's done, it's going to then start initialization, of course, from the snapshot. So it tells you this may take significant amount of time. So normally this would take about I think about an hour, depending on how fast your system is, network is, and so on and so forth.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, dude. I don't know what because I definitely need the atomic acids API. In fact, I don't know what to do. Maybe that's what we need, and not necessarily the history API.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
We could do that as well. If what we I believe what we're gonna do, most of it is gonna be revolve around atomic assets. So yeah.
Yeah, dude. I would think so. Um, but but a lot of it is also around wallet actions and transactions, which is the history API, right?
Yeah,
Fuck,
yeah.
you just need to have both, man. Fuck. You do. I mean, it's undoubtedly you know, you need to have both. So, all right, we still got a minute or two here, right? I'm gonna
Yeah,
run.
yeah. So this is the step, right? So this is the last step. In this steps, you don't necessarily have to do anything. You just have to wait for it to fully initialize itself, and then and then it's going to start receiving blocks. And once it starts receiving blocks, you can then make a query to that endpoint, to this endpoint, like get the information about the block and so on and so forth.
Do you have the other one up already running still?
Yeah. The
Can we
other
go
one.
look at that?
Yeah, we can do that. So I can start putty.
Yeah, I'm gonna go grab a monster. I'll be right back.
So this is called the wax node. This is the one that's running. So I can load this right now. Open. Okay, so I don't have the font set here, so then I'm going to go and set the font for this so that it's much bigger. Hold on. Let's see. Putty. Wax node. Load. Go to appearance. Change. I'm gonna make it about 16. Yes, session. Save. That's
Cool.
about information. Yes. Open. Yeah. So this is the one I have running already.
Okay.
So let's see. So now if I do docker ps, you can see there's a wax production.
What does PS do?
Just show me which containers are currently running.
Huh. Okay.
So I can see like this container is currently running, right?
All right.
So I can make like I can make HTTP endpoint to local host port 8888. I think it's V1, and I think it's get info. Hold on,
Underscore info, right?
Yeah, I think it's get underscore info. Let me see. Nah, that's wrong.
Oh, hold on. I know this one.
Let me see. What's the endpoint called? I think it's called get info.
V1 chain. You missed the chain.
V1 and then chain and then get
and
info.
then get info. Yep.
V1 chain get info. So I can do this, and then I can get the information of the current block and so on and so forth. And this is currently running, right? So this is public API, and it's currently saving data and so on and so forth. It's S3 data and so on.
Damn. And so this is where I can get my table rows if we wanted to, right?
Yeah. So and this endpoint is already also reversed. So I have NGX running already here.
Okay, what is that's the server?
Yeah, that's just proxy server. Yeah, I'm running it as a proxy server, but of course, you can use NGX also as a server, as your HTML server if that's what you want to use it for. You can use it as a load balancer. NGX
right.
Cool.
Yeah, I have like a little bit of familiarity with it, but not enough to.
Yeah, but I'm only using it here as a proxy server.
Cool.
I'm gonna stop this as well because I don't know if we truly need this running now. Because you said we needed this, so yesterday I started this.
Yeah, but this is perfect because now we can we don't have to wait for the other one. We can just like skip ahead like it was finished. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I guess are we?
Yeah,
done
this other one I already decided I'm going to clean up this. I'm gonna delete the whole instance. I just know that it's about I think 69 cents an hour. Maybe we have to pay $2 or $3 for using it, and then we delete everything as well. So that's why I didn't really bother about it.
Somebody had asked earlier what was the cost of running a node, and I know I think in the GitHub.
Yeah, so this is how you can calculate. Let me show you guys how you can calculate how much you're going to need. So for example, this is the instance, right, that we're using right now.
Yeah, can you zoom in a little bit? Hit Control plus a few times on your keyboard. Yeah, there you go. Perfect, thank you.
So this is the instance we are currently using, right? If you check the instance type, where is it? So the instance has about 16 CPUs running, and I think about 128 gigabyte of memory.
Yeah, which that's pretty significant.
This is the instance type, right?
Yeah.
This is the instance type we're running. Now, if you go to instance types here, you can see the prices of what they cost you for every hour those systems are running, right? Depending on the type of operating system you're running on them, you also see different prices. That is just those instance type. Then you have to go and check the price it costs you to for creating those storages that you are using as well.
Right.
So the first one is this. If we check, we are using the R5A 4X large. So this will cost you on a Linux system, it will cost you about 90 cents per hour. If you're using it as a window, exactly. Yeah, somebody already made that. Yeah, exactly. That's that. So you check the instance type, the cost, you check your storage volumes, and of course the traffic. Those are the three payments you are making. And when you calculate how much those are doing for you, for example, you have to know how many, like how many hour in a day, 24 hours times this price times the number of days in a month,
Right.
and that is just for the instance. Then you have to do the same for the storage. You have to know how much the storage are costing you, and then you have to know the traffic. How much is the traffic that you're costing? The traffic is costing you every hour. You multiply that by the times of hours in a day, by the times of days in a month, and then you have your total price of how much you have
Yeah.
to pay every month for
And
it.
just the instances, you're already at
Yeah,
$650 a month.
yeah. So this is just the instances, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
then you have to think about the storage and the traffic and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Right.
So it's
So
really expensive. It's not. It's really not cheap. Yeah. And this is
so
even the cheaper type, right? That we took here.
right.
If you look at the one that is they suggest, right? The one uh, the other files suggest. So normally to tell you to use this. If we go here, the one that is suggested here is R5B for S large. So if you look at this, which is the one that's suggested here, the price is, so for this, for the B, you need to pay about $1
Yes.
192 cents,
Like
right?
20. Like, yeah, dude.
Like
That's a lot. Like 30 cents more. That's
exactly, that's
wild.
like 30 cents more. And the one I'm using right now, the one I already have running, which is this one here, the one running here, I chose that one because it's a little bit cheaper in terms of the what I'm getting attached to it. One thing you also have to check here is if you check the storage for these instances, you don't have any storage right
Right.
attached to it. You have to get those storage yourself, and you have to pay for those storage. But what I did is I check what have storage as apart from these two, and this one has a storage, right? So there's this
Okay.
R4, and what I get with this is I get about 600 gigabyte of storage with it,
Okay.
which I don't have to have this extra storage that I have to get. I just get this big storage, and that costs about $1. And for me, this was much okay than taking this and then having to pay extra for this
Right. 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 Right.
extra storage. With this, you get about 600 gigabyte storage. So
Okay.
you have to make comparisons. I'm sure there's even much better deal. I didn't really go very deep into
Right. Right. Right.
comparisons and seeing which one is the best deal, but you have to kind of make comparisons of these things and see which one is the best deal for you.
Right, and I think the very important thing to point out here is that I don't think anybody who's running a history API or a block producing node is using AWS because of how stupid expensive it
Yeah,
is.
I think people are using much just in
Right,
different stuff. Like, so there are people that just get the bare metals, and the bare metals here are even much more expensive. Like, if you let's
right.
see the R
Can
five
you
bare
explain what
metal.
a bare metal is to anybody who doesn't know?
So a bare metal in this scenario means that you are not sharing the system, right? So you are the only host of this system. Like, for example, what we have here are shared systems, right? So you can see I have a system where I'm also sharing those CPU and so on with other people. I'm sharing the memory and so on with the bare metal. You are the owner of this host, so you can do whatever you want to do with that host. You can and so on. So you have completely free free resources of the whole hardware. And there is a bare metal for the R5. It's called Metal. With the Metal, you can see you have like the 96 CPU that you have the whole CPU on the system, and that costs about $6 per
That's
hour as a
ridiculous,
Linux
dude.
system. So this is something you probably don't want to do because it's just too expensive, and so most people did just go for other uh, 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 bare metal system. I think even when you go through the atomic or the wax developer page, they will suggest you to take any of these two bare metal infrastructure provider. I didn't really go through them. I didn't see what they offer, but I believe they probably offer something much better than Amazon AVS. So what do they offer here? So here, and this is nice because you have a specific amount that you have to pay monthly. Of
Okay.
course, you would have to get extra RAM, and this is also good because you also have this drive.
Yeah,
Most
but
of the
that's
time,
not. They're
the
not
drive are
solid
not
states, though, right?
SSD, so
Yeah.
they might not really be the best option. So you have to find maybe a much better options. The CPU are always okay. You don't necessarily need CPU to be too much when you run in
Right.
the blockchain. All the one thing you need most is the RAM and the drive, the
Yeah.
space to store those information. The CPU can be 6 core is enough. It doesn't have to be that
That's
much.
the one that I see on the endpoints. Is that Hetzner? I saw some weird company that I had never heard of
Mhm.
that because it shows you who the endpoints are using, right? Like there's like two or
Yeah.
three Cloudflares, and there was one that just dominated, and I think it was Hetzner.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess they're cheaper, right? Is what
I
you're
believe
saying?
so. Yeah, yeah. This that you would definitely find a much better offer here than you would with AVS running this stuff. And there's
Yeah,
also these people that are also having ones you can get as well.
yeah, and so yeah, Nunes is much better. So servers out there, AWS really is the most expensive. Um, Yes, we are. We're the only reason why we're doing it on AWS and are going to run it on
I
AWS
think it's
is
because
because
we have this free credit.
yeah, we have a huge amount of credits that are going to expire, and so you know we have the luxury of not worrying about how much we're burning through because I don't think we can burn through all that there is unless like we really try hard. Um, I don't know, Hattie. What do you think of not necessarily renting a server, but um, buying a server or building a server? I mean, I know that they generate a tremendous amount of heat, so you would want to keep them
Yeah, 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 yeah.
somewhere
That's
where
the
you
problem.
don't care about the temperature unless you're in a very cold place.
Yeah, yeah, that is the problem, and I think the second problem is the electricity bill. I think
Right? Yeah, 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 yeah.
one thing that kills people a lot, the electricity bills and so on. Like it'd be nice if you can build something like that where you have a solar powered electricity bill. Yeah, 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 yeah. Someone said the other side are better. Yeah, I'm sure they will offer you a much better offer than AVS does. We are using AVS because we have some lot of credit to burn, and so we're not really looking into that. But mostly you would use service like this. Like even this is much better than having an AVS. Because you will have a much better compact stuff going on, right? For example, you have this server with two CPU. Like I said, you don't necessarily need enough CPU. This not information. What you're looking for is the RAM. You want a much larger RAM, and you want something that offers you a very big HDD. And this offers SSD HDD, which is really good. And they have a very nice traffic as well, 30 terabytes, which should be enough for you if you're running this things as a private endpoint.
Yeah, without a doubt. Climb and Moon, thank you so much for the bits. That was amazing. Yeah, this is super cool stuff. I'm
Just
glad we
check
did.
now what we did. As you can see, this is still taking a lot of time. This would normally take a very long time to finish. As you can see, it's still initializing from the snapshot. And this is just taking from snapshot. So you can imagine if you're doing it from Genesis, this would take about 2-3 weeks to finish up.
Then yeah, to Lee's comic, the credits came from Capital Factory. It's a what's the word? Fuck. Shit, why can't I remember that startup word? A place for startups, incubator,
Mhm.
like an incubator for startups here in Austin, and it's just a perk of membership. You know, they want to help you get off the ground and get going, and they give you $10,000 worth of credits with AWS as part of your package. And I can assure you that if you are already spending money on AWS, it would probably cut your bill in half just joining up at Capital Factory. And you could never use it, and you would save money on the credits, which is pretty amazing. Doomy says, "Oh, so oh shit! So you can't just burn the excess with crypto mining, Hady? Can we crypto mine instead? What can we do? I
Yeah,
guess."
you could do, you
I don't
could
know.
do
Hit me up. Let's talk. Let's do
that.
the crypto mining
Yeah, you
stream. Yeah.
probably could do that. I just don't know if crypto mining is really lucrative at the moment. But you could do that. You could definitely could do that.
For Mountumi says using AWS for AWS Glacier for a backup. That was years ago. So I really liked Light Sail, Amazon
Yeah,
Web
yeah.
Services.
The light sale is really, really a very good option if you just want to run for some little server, you want something
Right.
running up quickly. Yeah, yeah. You definitely should go for the light sale instead of the EC2. Instead of the EC2, they have
Right.
light sale, which is a much better option.
Yeah.
So
That's
uh,
like $5 a month, and
yeah, that's like $5 a month for a normal, nice
right,
uh,
and it'll be
hardware
fast
that you
and
can use for most of the things you would, yeah, where
yep,
here like so if you're starting something, just some application or something want to run, we already even have an application running on let's
oh
say,
yeah. They're
yeah.
yeah.
So you could put something together. It's really very easy. Is it
Yeah, I
can
mean, you
go
can go
here.
from free with
Yeah,
like
they even have a
Heroku and
free
Vercel.
instance,
Yeah, dude. There's
so you
if
can have
you have a
those.
website that you're trying to get launched, if you go directly to like GoDaddy and start paying their like even their $6 a month for hosting, like that's a ripoff. Like you're
Yeah,
not going to have that much traffic where you need to pay for anything until
yeah.
for
So
some
you can,
time. Yeah.
yeah, you can have something like this for $3.5 a month on a light sale. So it's not much, but like I said, you don't if you just running a normal website,
Right.
it's enough.
So run those.
Five to
Well,
$500 a month, depending on what you want. Nice.
yeah, mining ETH with 5 grand of processing power. Ah, shit. Yeah. Yes, that is true. Also, yeah, yeah. I fell victim to the idea that if you want a website, you have to go to GoDaddy, or if you want a website, you have to go. You need a hosting provider, and that's just I don't know if 15 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever that was the only option, and there wasn't sites like Heroku or
Mhm.
Vercel. Like you do have to know what you're doing to deploy, but you shouldn't be paying for
Yeah, you can also host your website on Raspberry Pi. You're right.
yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah, if you know what you're doing, you shouldn't have to pay until your traffic hits a point where it's just, it's not feasible to do it for free anymore. You
Definitely,
need
definitely.
yeah.
And you can also get free DNS right now. It's not really a big problem. There's a lot of websites that offer you free DNS. You can also get a certificate for free now using
Yeah, dude,
Let's
let's encrypt.
Encrypt.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
it's really like you could do anything right now for free. Like
right.
you only have to go and start paying if you start having maybe big traffic going on
Exactly.
onto your website and so on. But for some just normal website or something, I'm sure you could put something together at home and it will be running perfectly okay.
Yeah, dude. An SSL used to be like 70, $100 a year, I think. Like it wasn't cheap. And then that's when I found Let's Encrypt.
Hmm.
And I struggled through installing it through the command line and all that stuff. Now Vercel and Heroku and those they just do it all for you pretty much
Yeah,
and
yeah,
make hooking up custom domains to it like a breeze. You just got to go throw a little text file into your DNS records.
yep, yep,
That's done. And
yeah.
uh, yeah, yeah, hell yeah. All right, Hattie, we're about 2 hours, man. It's
Yeah, I think we'll have to end because I don't think this will be done very
yeah,
soon. It's gonna take some time,
yeah.
and
I got
but
to
this
go
is
get
just
ready
it,
for
right? This is just it.
yeah, dude, this was awesome. I'm gonna get this download and I'm gonna go through and edit and see if I can't trim that 2 hours down to at least an hour, and then get it up on our YouTube for sure somewhere so that it's there as a resource. OP, you inspire us. And thank you so much for everybody that tuned in. Hit that Code and Dev channel in our server if you have any questions. I know that Hattie's schedule is not like mine. His availability also isn't. If you missed it earlier, he's pursuing his master's in computer science. So it keeps him relatively busy, along with
Yeah,
all
yeah.
his
But
personal
but
life and stuff.
but
But
if anything, just tag me on the Discord channel.
yeah.
Anytime I come back or anytime I'm Discord, I'm gonna reply.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much, Hattie. Awesome. All right, let's see who's streaming, and I will get you over there. And thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys soon. Shit, there's nobody.